here. We enjoy her so much. And she is going to be starting our January series of planting the seeds of possibility, setting intentions, and preparing the soil for new beginnings. So let's give Janice a warm welcome.
How's this? Better? Okay, sorry. Okay, so I was just saying about praying for Charlie and for Elaine because they're not here with us this morning. And I love the song we were just singing. You know, when I pray, my heart goes deeper, my love goes deeper, my soul goes deeper, and I am with my God. I am with God. So the way I like to pray for people is I like to think about them in the vertical. You know, and here we talk about the vertical, which is their true self, their God self. And then the horizontal is when we're living as our compromised self. So when I pray for Charlie, I think of Charlie in his office because he has said many, many times that he loves that office. It's where he feels the pull. You know, we talk about feeling that pull, that call from God, is he loves being in the office. And Elaine, who injured her knee, I think of Elaine, I was honored to be on her radio show, and she was in her studio working her magic. And so let's just take a moment to pray for them and to imagine them being the love that they are, knowing that they are healing, they are already whole and complete and perfect. And it's just to hold them in the light, in the truth of what they are. And also to include anyone who's in your thoughts, your prayers. Just remember the beauty and truth of what they are and continue to see that. The love, the truth. And so it is. Amen. Today we're going to talk about the power of the seed. And I love that this is the first, I feel so honored to be here on the first Sunday of the year, the new beginning. Seeds start off as so tiny, so small. Recently I was planting some cilantro, and you get it in the little packet. And it's like there's so many, and it's just, they're so tiny. And it's such a small investment. Like, how much does it cost for a packet of seeds? And yet the abundance is endless, because once those grow, cilantro goes to seed very fast. So then it's more seeds, more, but it's never ending. And what's interesting is the size of the seed does not equate to the result. And then tomato seeds, you slice a cherry tomato in half and the tiny seeds pour out. It's a beautiful example of abundance. I always think about that when I see all these seeds. Like, how could we say that life is not abundant? It's just impossible. The seeds are everywhere. So if we really believe in unity's principles, there is only God, there is one presence and one power, God the good, omnipotent. And since God is everywhere present, that means that God is within us. We cannot be separate from God. So if anyone is struggling with abundance, and who hasn't at some point, it's important to just plant something. You know, if you plant something, you see it visually for yourself over and over and over. We could see the power of God working. And if the appearance of scarcity shows up, get more intimate with seeds. Watch God in action. And then we can make a choice. Are we going to judge by appearances, or are we going to harmonize with truth? It's not always easy to turn our attention away from appearances, but it is necessary. You know, whether it's with our health, relationships, all aspects of our life, we have to choose where we're going to throw the weight of our consciousness. We can't be willy-nilly with our consciousness. We have to make a decision what we're going to align with. Seeds are divine ideas in God. Everything that comes to fruition originates as an idea. There's nothing in this space that didn't start out as an idea. Either we are working with and living from spiritual principles, or we're spending our time judging by appearances. This is a good time of the year to decide where you want to live from this year. Where do you want your focus to be? On God or on appearances? That's our choice. It's a little tricky with this microphone, but I'll get used to it. I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and she was saying that it's really important to love yourself. You know, we hear that all the time. You have to love yourself. And so I started thinking about that. What does that mean to love yourself? What self? Our true self, Christ's self, God's self, or our compromised, fearful, worldly self? Like, what part are we supposed to love? But then when you think about it, there is only one self. We're not split beings. So we can only be our true self, our God's self. When we look at that, it's like light. Light is light. Light is always here unless there's something covering the light. So if there's only God, as our first principle says, and we cannot be separate from God, as the second principle says, then we're not two people. We're not split. We're pure goodness, abundance, health, regardless of appearances. Everything that God is, we are. It's important to understand this before we look further into our relationship with the seeds of our desires. We really have to get grounded in knowing the truth of what we are. And yet at the same time, it's important to have compassion, not judgment, for whatever it is we're experiencing. You know, if our compromised self is on full display, if we're fearful, we also have to have compassion for that. There's an affirmation, or more like a statement, that I've been working with lately that's been helpful. I say, I am forgiven, released through grace and mercy as I move from human understanding to spiritual understanding. I also forgive others as I know they are on this journey as well. I think it's really important for us to have compassion for all of ourselves, to love all aspects of ourselves, and to know the truth of what we are. Before we start getting into desires, it's really important to discern between true desires and worldly desires. So let's first look at true desires. I believe our deepest desire is to be what we are, and our greatest fear is that we can't be. So why is that so tricky? Because we've spent our whole life trying to hide what we believe is not acceptable. You know, we hear, oh, you're too sensitive, you're not adventurous enough, you're too serious, you're too this, you're not that. So that's why you can always find your gift, the gift that you are, in your shame. The gift that you are, that you came here to be, is in your shame. I've been going to Unity Marin for many, many, many years, and the minister many years ago, he and I were good friends, and we would meet together monthly for many years to support each other and just kind of check in. And one day we're talking about something, and he said, "You're so absolute." And I'm like, I took it as an insult. He probably didn't mean it as an insult, but I took it as an insult. I felt ashamed. I thought, oh, I'm too soft. I'm too, no, no, that's not true. Let me take that back. I took it to mean I'm not soft. I'm not caring. I'm not compassionate. I'm too rigid. I'm not flexible. And yet we can't not be what we are. So I don't think he meant it as a criticism, but it didn't matter because it hit a chord in me. It hit a wound in me. I would often hear, oh, you're so Pollyanna. You're so but you are what you are this lifetime. So it's interesting. We always say you can find your gift in your shame. And the reason why it's a shame is because we describe the gift that we are often in a negative way. Call it the negative descriptor. So we take the gift we are, and then we describe it in a negative way. Does that make sense? So getting back to the seed of desire, we just want to be what we are, and we just want to live the life we've been given to live. Desire of the Spirit, it refers to a longing or a yearning that comes from the divine within us. Who doesn't want to live their version of peace, love, joy, abundance, growth, expression? You know, true desires that arise from longing to be what we are, they're different from worldly desires. The worldly desires are those desires where we try to fix what we perceive is wrong with us. We do the shoulds and the once I, then I. Its perspective is about looking good, being acceptable, fitting in, gaining approval, having guarantees, being in control, safety, survival. You know, we talk about how the vertical is our God self and the horizontal is often our worldly, fearful self. Fortunately, they feel very different where we're living from. One, the vertical inspires us, and the other one feels like a burden. So you can always tell if you're following a true desire or a worldly desire or a compromised desire. When I'd be coaching people, I would always focus on the most important thing is to get to a person's true desire, because we don't do what we think we should do. And if you identify a person's true desire, then the results are guaranteed because God placed that desire within them. And living a life of shoulds rather than living from our divine nature is what has us chase worldly desires. Living separate from source doesn't feel good, so we chase worldly pleasures that we believe will relieve the pain of feeling separate from source. You know, we hear the top New Year's resolutions. They're always pretty much the same. Save money, eat healthier, exercise more, lose weight, quit destructive habits. But these are all symptoms. We believe that by attempting to self-improve or fix our so-called inadequacies, that will bring us peace. But it doesn't. That's only transient peace. If we're still living inside of the misunderstanding that the source of our good is in the world rather than God, we'll be bouncing back and forth between chasing worldly desires and then trying to fix the mess we created. It's circular with no traction or satisfaction. So we go round and round and round when we're trying to fix what's not broken. And if we're on that treadmill, we have to remember that the truth is that there is nothing wrong with us. We're not bad, doing life wrong. We're just on a track that doesn't have the capacity to deliver what our heart truly desires and what we truly deserve. Choosing God, truth, over appearances can get tricky because we care about other people. We don't want to disappoint them. We don't want to feel we're doing something wrong. It's our nature to love. Sometimes we confuse loving with trying to make other people comfortable. I remember when I didn't want to be a CPA anymore. At the time, I was doing my grandparents' taxes, and I told her I'm not going to do this anymore. And she got furious. And the thing is, she's never once in her whole life ever raised her voice at me. And she's like, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know what's going on with you, you know. And she slammed down the phone. And I'm just like, oh, my God, I can't believe my grandmother just yelled at me, you know. And it was so, she's like, I don't even know you anymore. But then I think about that. What am I supposed to do? Keep working as an accountant because she's not going to be uncomfortable And sometimes that's why we don't follow the desire of our heart, the desire, the seed that God planted within us, because we're trying to, I didn't want to be unloving. I didn't want to be the person that caused her upset. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But you could see why we go back to the pleasing and accommodating. It's slippery, but because you are so loving, sometimes you compromise yourself. It's crazy, but that's not how truth works. You living in your vertical, which is your alignment with God, ripples out and benefits everyone. Living as your Christ self can't harm others. Living in the horizontal with our shoulds, resentments, pleasing, over-accommodating, and trying to do the right thing eventually has to be unwound. And it's often way messier than it had to be if we would have stayed in our truth lane. But that's okay, because that's where the compassion enters in. We're all trying to figure this out. You are pure goodness, made in the image and likeness of God. And yet in a loud, busy, distracted, competitive world, it's easy to forget what we are. So what is the desire that wants to be birthed within you? Reflect on your own life. What has always been there for you? That seed that's always been within you. It's always been growing within you. It's built in. A class I was teaching once, we asked this question, what can't you not do every day? Think about it. What can't you not do every day? That revealed, initially people said, oh, drink my coffee. Sure, we're not talking about the everyday habits, but your spiritual nature can't not do certain things. Like, Guy, you probably can't not play music every day. Or, it's just these things that you can't not do. And it's really revealing, because it shows you I can't not study every day. I love truth. I love it. I'll put everything else on hold, but I will not do that every day. So a lot of times your desire may be just expanding on what's already there. It's just giving you permission to go where you want to go, taking the next inspired step without judging yourself, saying, oh, this is too small, this isn't mine to do, who am I to do this? You want to listen to God, listen to your true self, stay in the vertical without prematurely ending the conversation and then going back to business as usual in the horizontal. Allow your desire to come to fruition in consciousness. Feel it, experience it, explore it, identify it. You don't have to do anything with it if you don't want to. It's just becoming receptive to source communicating to you, God talking to you. I love Emily Cady, where she says, desire in the heart is always God tapping at the door of your consciousness with its infinite supply, trying to give you greater good, a supply which is forever useless unless there is a demand for it. So we have to be willing to accept our good. Our desires are like Jack in the Box. Remember that little toy thing? Where you stuff it down, but it keeps popping back up because it wants to come back up. It's his nature to pop up. He doesn't like being squashed down in a little tin box. And remember, you could feel the pressure. Remember, as you tried to get that Jack in the Box in, it was the pressure. You had to push against it and then close the lid. And it's the same way with us. When we attempt to snuff out the seeds of our heart's desires, our true desires, the expression of the life we've been given to live, it's painful and we feel constricted. But notice what pulls you. Life is calling you forth. God is calling you forth. The wisdom within you is calling you forth. You have to trust it. I love what Rumi said, let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. God will not lead you astray. So who or what plants those seeds of desires? Where do they come from? I think they're built in. It's the desire to be, to share, to give and receive love, to give and receive truth, the truth of our being, divine ideas, divine inspiration. Desires live within us, and they want to come through us. They want to be released. We are one with God. Our divine ideas live in God consciousness. That's their origin. Abraham Hicks, they're channelers, and they would say, Desires come from contrast. Contrast fuels the desire. And I thought about that a lot because I love the way Emily Cady describes desire, God knocking at the door of our consciousness. But I think they're both true because I don't think contrast is what creates the desire, but it does fuel our desire. So if we're not listening to that still small voice within, the contrast of the world will bring us back. It's like the prodigal son. If we turn away, it's not going to go very well. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more painful. And eventually, we're going to cry uncle. You know, it says the prodigal son came to himself and pivot back to our true self. It's not sustainable for us to not. So I think sometimes when those things happen in our life that we don't like, they're actually wake-up calls where you're traveling a little bit too far. You forgot who you are. Come back, come back. Yes. So if we're not listening to the still small voice within, the contrast of the world will bring us back. So, and then we get really clear. I don't want that. I want this. It brings great clarity into our life. And what if we don't know what we want? What if we can't identify those seeds of desire within us? I don't believe that that's possible. Although there may be good reasons why we are not having that experience, why we really feel like we can't identify our desires. The first one is beliefs we may have around deserving. We tell ourselves, I don't know what I want, I can't have what I want, or I never get what I want. We're conditioned away from source, away from freedom, away from life. You know that story about the fleas in the jar? There's fleas in a jar with the lid on. And then when the lid gets unscrewed, the fleas don't go anywhere. They're so conditioned to have that limit where the lid used to be that they don't go beyond it. And that's how it is with our conditioning. If our expectation is that we don't deserve or we don't know or we can't have, we get very used to that. The second thing is I hear people say, well, God doesn't talk to me. You know, God may be talking to you, talks to other person, doesn't talk to me. And that's not true either. God talks to everyone. No one is left out. But sometimes we must learn how to listen. We must go back to understanding God and our relationship to God. We must deepen our understanding of how spiritual principles work. No one is ever left out. Okay, and the third is become receptive. If you are one with God, one with Source, and you've closed the door on the world, now you're in this secret place of the Most High. And then we have to get used to closing that door on the world. And then you can ask, what is mine to do? And I think it's good sometimes to start really small. You know, what is mine to do this afternoon? And then sit quietly. You will receive an answer as long as you don't intercept the communication with a yes, but, and start judging what you're receiving, such as, that's a dumb idea. I couldn't possibly do that. I have too much to do. That's silly. So you want to notice, are you cutting off Source? Source is communicating to you. We filter out God all the time when we think we know best. Yet all we're really doing is placing our loyalty with the world, with the time-space reality of appearances, of judgments, of approval, acceptance. We're allowing our ego to decide what is best for us rather than our soul. So identify and claim the seed that is knocking at the door of your consciousness. This doesn't have to be a new seed. It may be a seed you planted a while ago, but you want to commit to nurturing it on a deeper level. You may want to give it more attention this year, more room, clear some weeds around it, give it some breathing room, more space to grow. So you may have already awakened this desire within you, but this year is all about just creating more space and more room for this desire. Or it may be a new seed you've never planted before. You may choose to place it in the deep, dark, rich soil. Maybe you don't want to tell anyone what it is or announce it. It may feel good to keep this desire quiet, protected while you get used to the idea, while you grow it first in your consciousness. It may be a gentle idea, a gentle seed, just kind of letting it percolate quietly. Or maybe this is the year you announce what seed you've planted. You're done withholding, done feeling ashamed of what you are and what you're here to do, and you want to declare it, claim it, own it, celebrate it. You know, you can see how there's different ways to interact with these desires. Your relationship with your seed of desire is between you and you. You get to decide the relationship you will have with your desire. Whether it's a public one or a private one, doesn't matter. What does matter is that this is your desire, the desire that wants to be birthed through you, the expression of your heart and soul. You deserve to be what you are. You know, a lot of times, too, we get all about the size of the desire. You know, it should be big, it should be this, it should be that. But really, you're just looking for a match. It's like when my kids were looking for their colleges. You know, oh, this person got in here, this person got, it doesn't matter, irrelevant. You're just looking for a match. Just like relationships, no matter what it is. You want to take your ego out of your desires, judging and comparing it. It's so small, or that's too big, or I can never do that. It's not about your personal opinion. It's about how God wants to work through you. Sometimes we get tripped up with the word infinite, infinite supply, infinite potential. That word can lead to overabundance. I have too many choices, too many, I don't even know what to do. I could do anything, you know. But again, you're looking for the match. You want to live and express your Goldilocks seeds, like the porridge. Not too hot, not too cold. You want the just right life for you that lives and expresses your God self. And then there's divine timing. You know, we just want to, these desires have a life of their own. And faith, so often we attempt to plant a hybrid seed. You know, we get the inspiration from source, and then all of a sudden our personal opinions, yes, but it's taking too long. It should look like this by, why hasn't this happened? And we cut off that pure seed. So that's not helpful. And also skip here. So again, it gets back to, this is a very personal relationship between you and the seed that lives within you, your life expression. You know, so what are you measuring for? The juice, the flow, the experience, the life in your seed. It's not about the finished result. We're never done. No one is ever done. Life is eternal. But what does matter is the quality of our life and the peace in our heart. That's really what we're after. I love, Harry Chapin was a singer-songwriter in the 60s and 70s, and he wrote this beautiful song. It was wasn't a singing song, it was a talking song, if that makes sense, called My Grandfather. It's kind of a good thing about judging by appearances, I think, but he says, my grandfather was a painter. He died at age 88. He illustrated Robert Frost's first 2 books of poetry. And he was looking at me and he said, Harry, there's 2 kinds of tired. There's good tired and there's bad tired. He said, ironically enough, bad tired can be a day that you won. But you won other people's battles, you lived other people's days, other people's agendas, other people's dreams. And when it was all over, there was very little you in there. And when you hit the hay at night, somehow you toss and turn. You don't settle easy. He said, good tired, ironically enough, can be a day that you lost. But you don't even have to tell yourself because you knew you fought your battles, you chased your dreams, you lived your days. And when you hit the hay at night, you settle easy. You sleep the sleep of the just, and you can say, take me away. He said, Harry, all my life I've wanted to be a painter, and I've painted. God, I would have loved to have been more successful, but I've painted, and I'm good tired, and they can take me away. Isn't that beautiful? Love that. That's how it is in our life. You know, over time, we learn that we could trust the seeds of desires that live within us. You know, you start to develop a new feedback loop. You begin to notice that your seeds may not have come to fruition on your timing, but they did come to fruition. And it did come to fruition in a way that worked for the highest good of all. As your faith deepens, you start to feel profound gratitude for the seeds of inspiration that pop into your consciousness, knowing their fulfillment is contained in that seed, that divine idea. As your faith deepens, you start to relax because you know you can trust life. You can trust what lives within you. You could trust the source you are one with. You can trust yourself. So just in conclusion, spend some time in the silence, close the door to the world, and listen within. Get in the habit of pausing and listening to your life. Know the truth of what you are, a spiritual being made in the image and likeness of God. What God is, you are. Learn what God is so you know what you are. Know the creative principle, mind, idea, expression. The fulfillment of the desire is located in the seed of desire. Your good is already here. Now you have to allow it and not block it. Gratitude for that seed of desire that dropped into your lap, in your consciousness. So this year, coming up, just reflect on your garden. What's going to be in your garden this year? What ideas, projects, hobbies, aspirations, habits, relationships, life expression will you allow this year? What seeds of desire are you going to nurture? Will you consciously choose to harmonize with the source of your being this year? What inspired action will you take? Will you let the jack-in-the-box come out and play? Or will you try to stuff him down and put a lid on him for another year? Okay, now it's time for our meditation. So get comfortable in your chair. Just allowing yourself to relax. Just become open and receptive. What is that seed within you? It's always been there, growing. Just know that your part is the easy part. You're here to allow the seed, not to force it. The growth isn't even yours to do. You just plant it. You plant it. You love it. You nurture it. You bless it. You praise it. You're grateful for it. Knowing that that life is being born within you. Coming to fruition in divine timing. If there's something for you to do, you will be inspired. Inspired action will call you forth. Nothing to figure out. No reason to overthink, overdo, overpush. Just recognize it. Make the connection. Allow it. Let it breathe. Let it grow. Celebrate it. Harmonize with it. Just relax into this knowing all is well. Life is living. Now we'll just spend a moment in the silence. Just to be with this beautiful desire within you. Just love this desire. Fall in love with this desire. Harmonize with it. And now gently bring your awareness back. And when you're ready, open your eyes.